Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the next episode of the Kestra podcast. I'm joined with Benoit, our product owner, again to discuss the upcoming release of 0.24. Now, we've got a bunch of cool features we're going to discuss, but I'm going to let Benoit tell us a little bit more about that. Benoit, introduce yourself and what's coming up in 0.24.
Yeah, thanks, Will, for having me on the podcast again. So yes, on 0.24, we have a bunch of stuff very interesting. I think the main one is the playground. That will be a beta feature for now, but the playground will allow you to shorten basically the feedback loop of editing the flow. We will look at this later on the podcast. So yeah, playground is a big feature. We also improve the way you user can cache tasks. So we have a dedicated property for task caching. Same more technical bits on the way we handle files with a universal file protocol that we implemented, and also some other great features around the way you can have dynamic dropdown, new SDK for Python, JavaScript, and Go. We will demo that a bit, and also a specific Kestra plugin to manage flows namespace within Kestra. So very interesting release this month.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I feel like there's lots of big features in this release. It's not like there's like in the last release, the big thing was the new multi-panel and no code editor, right? That was the big standout feature. But the playground, the SDKs is going to be a big win for some people. I'm just having a look at the list of other things. There's a few, and there's a bunch of new programming languages too. I was actually having a look. There's 6 new programming languages in this release as well, which is obviously a huge help to those who are using those languages or would consider using them if there was a dedicated plugin for it, which there is now. So we'll discuss all of that. But I am curious to discuss Playground now. What is Playground? What does that mean? What would that enable me to do in Kestra?
Yeah, so back then, just a bit of a backstory. So back then, as a user, you were editing the flow, it was fine. Then you will click execute to test the flow, and then you have a new screen with the execution logs, Gantt chart, very execution focused. Then you see an error, so you go back to the edit flow, and it was this kind of feedback loop that was working quite fine, but it was kind of slow. Like you have to edit, execute, edit with many screen, many click, many mouse moving and so on. And the playground is basically a way to shorten, to wrap that loop, to be very fast in editing, executing, and having the feedback loop directly. So what it enables is basically you are into the flow editor, and you can run tasks directly from the editor, and the execution logs won't happen in a new screen. It will all happen directly under the edition tab. So it's very fast now to edit, execute, and to have this iterative flow going on. And I think it's way easier to write flow nowadays with this feature. And one great example is, for example, you have, I don't know, you are a data engineer and you want to extract some data and then transform it. And basically, what you will do you will have one task to extract the data, could be 1 GB of data. So you run this task in the playground, and then when you transform the data, you don't have to run the extract again and again and to click execute, run the entire flow. You just run your first transformation and say, okay, I messed up something. And instead of rerunning the whole stuff with the extraction part, you can just edit your transformation part, run the task, and it will use the previous result as a main context. And so yeah, that's a good example. I think people will use it.
Yeah, I've definitely run into that issue where I mean, you can kind of get away with it using replay, but when you're just constantly trying to like modify a flow, it's still quite annoying to be like, okay, now replay from this task using this revision. It's like, no, I just want to run this task. I don't want to have to keep going back into my last execution and edit it. It was just a lot of clicking.
Yeah, and instead of having many screens, etc., again, it's very user experience focused. This feature, instead of having many screen, you have to click, I think, 3 times for with the previous version to have a edit execute workflow. Now, which was one click, you have the execution directly into the screen, and yeah, way faster, better experience. And so yeah, that's the way to go.
Perfect. So this is one of our getting started blueprints. So if you wanted to have a go with this yourself, you could just head over to flow blueprints, and then under getting started, I'm using the hello world example here. Now, if I just quickly go back to that, so I've got playground enabled in my settings, so it's only in beta at the moment. So if you do want to have a play, head over to your Kestra settings, turn it on in there. Yeah, my settings is being really slow today. Oh, there we go. Yeah, you can turn it on here in your settings. Then once you're back in your flow, you'll see there's this little toggle on the top right for turning it on. And you'll know it's on because all of a sudden everything goes blue at the top here, very clear. And you get this huge playground bit at the bottom here, which is where all the magic happens. Now I'm just going to get rid of the docs for a second. And as you can see here, as I highlight tasks, it gives me the option to run the task or run that task and the ones below it. So I guess I could try running this one here, right? And see if I just make that bigger. It's already ran the first task, but I didn't ask it to run that. I guess it's just using that from a previous execution.
Yes, that the goal is that once you run one time, we cache the previous task execution, and then you can run again and again.
And then Hello World didn't
That's
run
the
because
goal.
I didn't tell it to run. But now if I was to run Hello World, that will be able to use the first two tasks, but I didn't have to wait for it to run, not 8.5 seconds to run that second task.
Exactly.
It just, oh, I love this. This is great. I haven't really used
Yeah.
Playground yet, so this is sort of my live reaction, you could say.
I think I will enable it by default because it's way faster than just having the execution.
Yeah, this is cool. And then I can see all the outputs that were generated. So I can see that it produce a variable, which it then used in the log, which we can see here. This is cool.
Yeah. And what's good also here is that it works within the code editor, but also with the no code. So if you are not aware of you don't work with YAML, etc., you can work directly with the no code.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yes, here.
So
it works.
I'm going to add the topology.
Again, it's consistent with all the views and the topology also. So it's consistent with all the views. When you enter Playground, you have Playground for everything. That's it.
Oh, cool. Okay. And so how does this work for executions? Does this create new executions on the back end, or how does this, where does it log all this information?
Yeah, in the backend, it creates specific execution with there is a new, that's very technical, but there is a new kind of execution.
Okay.
There is the playground one, and so they are hidden by default into the interface. But you can retrieve it from the backend directly. So
cool.
if needed, that's possible.
Yeah. Cool. So basically, it's effectively, I guess, doing replays and stuff, kind of, but doing a lot of the heavy lifting for you, right?
Exactly, and technically speaking, we are using the replay functionality on the backend team. We're very smart on this. We just don't reinvent the loop. We already have some replay features in Kestra from a long time ago, and we reused that to create the playground. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. So yeah, if you want to have a go at Playground, it's available right now in 0.24. So just pull the latest image and you should be able to get involved, or you can pull the specific 0.24 image too. So this is obviously one of the big features of 0.24. It's obviously still in beta, so if you do discover bugs or things that you don't think are quite right, let us know. Come chat with us in Slack. You can open an issue on our GitHub repository. We love the feedback, so if you have any comments, we'd love to hear what you think of it. Is this helpful to you? Is it missing the point? Yeah, do let us know. But yeah, what other big things are there in 0.24? I guess the task hashing is another crucial part. Let me just swap.
Yeah, and it resonates a bit with the playground actually.
Okay, so you said there's now a task hashing property that I can use on tasks. Again, another thing I haven't looked at. So this is my live reaction to it.
Yeah, but I think we can demo it live. Like if you, for example, your second task is a good one because there is a sleep on it. So here, if you do task cache, yes, that's it. It's a nested task, so that then you have to enable it.
I
enabled
equals
true. Enabled true, and then you have a TTL property inside it, allowing to say, okay, I want the cache to be live for 20 hours, so you can do
like
PT20, PT20H.
Yeah.
And so what that means here is that the first time you run the task, it will run the task as usual, but then the second time that it will go through the task, it will look first at the cache,
okay,
and use the cache value instead, and so it will skip the value, the task run, and use the cached value.
Okay, so
So,
here
so
we can see that caching is
yeah,
enabled. And this ran the flow pretty quickly, to be honest. 1 second. But if I run this again, it should cache it now. And
yeah,
we saw there it took, well, like no time at all, really. What, 0.13 seconds compared to the 1.5.
yeah.
So that's really, and so that just works on any task. I can put that on any task that takes a long time to run, especially like download tasks. You could tell it to just cache those
Yeah,
files.
that's the main use case, I think. Whenever you have big download and you don't want them to run again and again for certain in certain cases, you can just put a cache and that will skip it and use the previous value in the cache.
Nice.
So yeah, very useful for download, ingesting data, and you don't want to rerun it again in case of, I don't know, someone is going into Kestra, run execute and re-download everything. Could be costly, so you can have a cache on certain tasks.
That's very nice because I definitely I think it's less of the time saving for me, but it's more my database just gets full by just downloading
Yeah.
files because I'm running the same workflow a million times. And now I've just got all these executions that I don't need all the outputs they're storing because they're all storing the exact same file. I now have the same
Yeah, and
file
I think
downloaded 100 times.
exactly, and I think it will play great with the the plugin defaults. As you can set plugin defaults for any task, you could say, okay, for all the HTTP download,
Mm.
just put the cache enabled by default on all the tasks, and so for with a specific TTL, and so instead of setting cache every time, you could just set it at the task level with the
Okay,
plugin default properties. I think that could play very, very nicely.
very
Also,
cool. Cool. So we talked about task caching. Let's talk about my next favorite feature, which is the dynamic
yeah,
HTTP. I
so
think this
good.
is awesome. This is like so cool. So previously in Kestra, right, what you could do is, um, I had this example, right? So previously, I'll make that a little bit bigger too. You would, if you wanted to have a select or a multi-select, right? This is quite a few releases ago. You'd have to just be able to hard code them. That was the only option, right?
Yeah.
So if
Hmm.
you ended up having a new, well, cloud platforms are unlikely to change, but if you have, maybe you want to select a user, there was no way to dynamically fetch that user, right? You just had to hard code it in your workflow, which is really annoying for some use cases.
Definitely.
And then we made it slightly better in 0.19, which was a fair few releases ago now. But we did give you the option to now be able to fetch it using expression. So now you can fetch it from the key value store, which was the main use case we were promoting. And now you can, if you can automatically add that information to the key value store with a separate flow, you can now
Yeah.
access that. But that's another step that you don't necessarily want to
Yeah, that
take.
was the pain. Yes, that was the pain. You had to have a flow that managed the key v management on the other side, and then use this expression on your flow. So it was two separate flows.
Yeah, and the question is like, how often do you run that system flow to keep the key value store updated? Right? Do you run it daily?
Yeah,
Do you run it every hour? Like, it depends. It's just another
and
thing.
I think yeah, in certain cases, I think even like under the hour would make sense to refresh all the KV value. Like if you have a lot of users, a lot of application, and you want to be dynamic, you will have to update the KV very, very often. Yeah.
Exactly. So this is where we've taken it a step further, right? I'm just going to get rid of the topology view because it's kind of in the way. There we go. So now it's gone even further with a HTTP function inside of the expression. So now when I press execute, it's making that request to get this data. So now, well, I quite liked looking at, so what are we actually fetching, right? We're fetching a long list of products, basically product categories. We can see uh, loads of different categories, and we want to basically just show all the slugs in the demo. So if I pressed execute, boom. How nice is that? It just gets it. If the API updates, then no problem. The workflow is ready to go.
Yeah. And that works with any API. So if you have internal API with I know one great use case from our customers is, okay, you want to deploy VM and you have specific CPUs properties, specific memory, specific OS, specific version, etc. And all those stuff are from another application, another API, and you just want to fetch this API and be able to check the different properties and then deploy your VM according to those external values. So yeah.
The other thing I really like about this particular demo is the fact that the second one, which depends on the first, can use the input value from the first. So to make a new API request. So here I can select beauty, and now the products are all related to what I selected in the first, and it's all just doing it dynamically. And I love just how simple it is. Like there's nothing crazy going on here. It's just here's a URL, we're just adding the category to it, and it's fetching the data for us. There's no crazy magic happening here. So am I right in saying this HTTP function works in any expression, not just inputs?
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing is that it's very nice for the inputs part, what we just discussed, but also for any other task. Within the flow, you can use this HTTP to fetch directly any API, any data from any API. So instead of having a specific HTTP request task, that still makes sense for a lot of use cases, but sometimes you just want to be very dynamic, very fast. This people function works everywhere also.
That's very cool. Very nice. So yeah, this is available in 0.24. Would love to hear your feedback. Is this something that you're going to use? I'm definitely going to try and figure out ways to use this because this is cool. This is all happening thanks to the new SDKs that we have available in the latest release of Kestra. So we have SDKs for Java, Python, JavaScript, and Go. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Python, JavaScript,
Okay.
Go.
And so
Basically.
what do those enable? Because we obviously had some, I guess I wouldn't necessarily call them SDKs, but we had some libraries for JavaScript and Python that could enable some functionality with Kestra. But what do these SDKs sort of add on top of that, right?
Yeah, so the back then the libraries we had were kind of the early days of being able to interact with your Kestra instance through with other kind of code, so Python, JavaScript. You could do some kind of stuff, but it was not very official. It was very early on libraries. And now with the SDK, it's basically integrating all the API from Kestra with a SDK wrapper, so Python, JavaScript, and Go wrappers. So it enables a lot of stuff, but basically it allows to. So let's say you are doing a lot of Python in your company, and you want to use Kestra, but within your Python code libraries. And so now you can use the Python SDK from Kestra to interact with your Kestra instance. So basically, you can execute flows, you can edit flows, you can look at logs, fetching logs directly from in Python from your Kestra instance. So you can do that in Python, in JavaScript, and in Go. And so one use case I did on the side is building this kind of user interface in the terminal, which I call the terminal Kestra terminal user interface. Here you see. And so I've been using the Go SDK to build that fully. And so here what's happening if I go into, so I have a classic Kestra instance. And so for example, here I have a very basic flow. I can execute it into the interface. So that's the user interface. And sometimes you want to run everything in the terminal. And so what I build here is a terminal user interface to basically see all my execution, all my flows, and I can dive into them and see the logs every time. So that's a very basic demo of what you can do with the SDK. Basically building new interface, building new things with your specific code base. Here in Go, but could be Python and JavaScript too. Yeah, so that's very useful for a lot of stuff. So quite eager to see what user will do with the ATKs.
Very cool. Very cool. And these are all just available on GitHub. So if you want to get involved, you can just go and access those. They're also available on various package managers like npm, PyPy, and I guess the Java ones on Maven.
Yes, and the Go one is directly on GitHub because Go is very easy
Yeah,
with the package dependencies here.
because Go just does things properly.
Yes, sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. So this just gives you everything you want to know about your flows straight in the terminal. We've just released a plugin for Kestra in Kestra, which sounds pretty funny, right? Like, why does Kestra have a plugin for itself? But I do actually think that it makes a lot of sense once you look into it, right? Yeah, could you tell us a bit more about why a dedicated plugin rather than a core feature?
Yeah, I think it resonates also with the SDK. By this, I mean that sometimes within Kestra, you want to be able to fetch information from your Kestra instance. Let's say you have you want to have a flow that executes many flows, like this kind of meta management. And so Back then, it was possible with a HTTP request. You can call your an API instance to fetch all the flows, run the flows, but it's kind of very technical in the end. And thanks to those specific Kestra plugins, you can now have a specific task to list flows, for example, or to list namespaces. And so what you can do here is very easy. For example, you have a list flow, you list all the flows, and then you can loop over all the flows and execute the flows very easily. And so instead of wrapping it inside HTTP function or specific Python script or whatever you would do it back then. Now with the specific task, you can do meta management, so listing flow, listing namespace, running queries directly with this specific task. So very easier to do with this Kestra plugin.
I think this makes a lot of sense, right? Where you're running multiple instances. So here I'm running, the instance we're looking at right now is running on port 8080, but I have another instance running on port 8084 with the same username and password. I know, really bad. But if I execute this, there we go. I can get a load of information about my other instance in this Kestra instance. And so apparently I have a lot of flows.
That's a good example. Like you could have a development instance, a production instance, and you want to sync or see what's the difference between the two instances. Definitely a good use case.
Yeah, exactly. It's the sort of thing that maybe an individual might not use, but a company where different teams might. If you have multiple Kestra instances develop production or different teams using Kestra, it's just annoying when you've got all these different instances and you'd like to be able to have one centralized dashboard of like, are they all running? You know, just fetching executions, right? Of being able to see how many flows each one are running, making sure that that's all. Because there's the new query task where you can get all the execution data and just to see centralized, all my Kestra instances are passing, all of them are succeeding, or one of them is failing. It's just nice to be able to do that with Kestra to automate that, right? You haven't got to build a separate tool on top to do that. So another thing in Kestra 0.24 is the introduction of a login screen to the open source product. So if you already use the enterprise product, this is something you're already familiar with, but we've now brought this functionality to the open source product to make it more secure, make sure that people aren't exposing their Kestra instances to the web by accident.
Yeah, and so that's basically it. Like before, when you were starting a Kestra instance, it was very easy open to the web because there is no login logout screen like this. And in 0.24, we introduced this basic authentication by default, and so it's very easy to set. And then you have a basic authentication security on top of your instance.
And yeah, you can reset the part. It's all managed using your configuration. So when you first boot up Kestra with 0.24, it will prompt you to set a username and password so you can be happy that there's something that you're happy with. But if you forget that password, you can add a bit to your configuration to reset it. So this is assuming that your Kestra instance is hosted on something secure, something with a password, something that people who shouldn't be there can't access. And then you can go in there, add that bit to your configuration to re-prompt that login screen, that sort of setup screen to come up. So the next time you boot up Kestra, you'll be prompted to put in a new password so that it gives you the option there to, if you do have an issue, you can reset it without needing to have like an email server set up or anything like that to email you a link like you would find on most online platforms. In the new version of Kestra, we've added not one, not two, but 6 new programming languages, which is awesome to see. I love it when more languages get the official Kestra support. But the thing that I always, someone might find confusing is we promote the Kestra as language agnostic. So what does that mean, Benoit, when we say it's language agnostic, but we've now added support for languages?
That's a good call. So now basically in Kestra you can run whatever code you want, like coding language, because you have a specific shell command, Docker run task, so you can run whenever you want. But we have also this specific task, so script.python, scripts.go, script.php now, that allow you to bypass some configuration. So instead of specify a specific Docker container, specific shell command, etc., you can use directly this php.script, php.command task with those properties that are very focused on your language. So yeah, good example, you want to run the PHP script, you just PHP script, put your script in, and you have PHP running. And so you don't have to set up or think about how it's run under the hood. Like it's by default, it's hidden from the users. You can specify specific configuration, specific Docker container, extra after two. But by default, it's very easy to set. Yeah.
I think
So that's what we mean by code agnostic.
the thing I really like about this is I have been running programming languages before they had official plugins, right? Using the shell commands task, give it the Docker image it needs, away you go. But if you run a lot of those in a large workflow, they all have the same icon. And so it's hard to actually distinguish what's going on. So this is a really, I guess, complete first world problem, because you can obviously just name the task something better than script. But being able to see the PHP logo there within your large workflow, and you can see when you're maybe using different languages together, not just the shell commands one. Because if I add the shell commands one, right, you'll see that it's not the most well. It's a fine icon, but you have a lot of those in your workflow, and
yeah, and usually use one language for certain things. Like PHP will be more used for web server commands, and Python for some scripting, data scripting, for example. And so I agree. Like having the proper icons, the proper task for you will naturally map those icon and tasks for your workflows specific to your code language. So yeah, that makes total sense to me also.
Yeah, so here I can see like that's just the bash logo, right? But I can clearly see that these are two separate things, which some people might really appreciate.
Yeah, and also for let's say you have some plugin defaults, and so instead of having one plugin default for the shell one, that could be mixed for different stuff, now you can have specific plugin default for your PHP code, your shell, your Python, whatever task.
Yeah, no, that's a really good shout. Like you've just seen, lots of exciting things in 0.24 with more to come on the horizon, so do stay tuned for more. Yeah, Benoit, what's your sort of favorite thing in this release? The sort of biggest thing you're excited to see come to light?
Yeah, I think, and hopefully, like everyone, it's a playground. Like I think we are waiting for this feature, developing this feature for such a long time. Like we're discussing this for years, I think now with the team, and so it's very nice to see it happen in 0.24. So definitely looking for feedbacks on this feature. Please, guys, share your feedbacks. And yeah, very excited to play it myself. We definitely shorten the feedback loop and the way we iterate with the flow. So yeah, that's my favorite feature in Kestra 0.24, definitely.
Awesome. I'm definitely quite excited for the SDKs. We've been talking about those internally for ages, and we've had users who've gone, your Python library's great, but it could really do with having some actual extra, it being more than just sending outputs to Kestra. It'd be really good if I could sort of match this more similarly to other orchestration platforms they've used in Python. And now they have that ability. So I'm curious to see how people use it, right? And what they end up building with it. Cool. Well, thank you so much for watching. Let us know in the comments below what you think of this podcast. Would you like to see more podcasts in the future? And if so, who would you like to see from the team? I'm always looking for new guests. So do let us know if there's anyone in particular you'd like to see. But yeah, otherwise, hopefully you enjoy 0.24.